Well, let's head overseas now, and joining us live is Peter Mathews, Professor of Political Science at Cypress College in LA. Great to see you as always, Professor.
Good to see you both as well.
Let's talk about the G7 summit. It's getting underway, and we saw plenty of smiles and elbow greetings and so forth. Some of the main topics, of course, coronavirus, climate change, the rise of China, but an interesting point about climate change and vaccines in terms of not just the distribution of vaccines, but also the sharing of potential patents and knowledge.
Yes, they're both very important. The distribution is important, and President Biden has promised 500 million doses, and that's a big start for the world. On the other hand, the releasing of patents so that people in those other countries that don't have the vaccine yet or not producing it very well or very much can start producing it really efficiently and completely available to their people, and that would reduce the cost as well for them. And this has to be a global effort, as I mentioned before in some of the interviews. It cannot be just a national effort because the virus will mutate in countries where there's no vaccines or very few vaccines. We've got to help get the entire globe vaccinated, and then all these things will help. The G7 can be very big help in this regard as well.
Professor, it's always hanging in the long grass, COVID. It just seems to be around, and they were quite jarring pictures when I first saw them of all the leaders together, particularly when you look at the latest numbers coming out of the UK, because they were dipping and dipping and dipping, and now they're starting to rise quite sharply, and many epidemiologists are quite concerned.
Yes, they are, because what happens in the UK could be a precursor to what could happen in the United States and other parts of the world. And what it has to do with is this Delta virus that originated in India that has become completely dominant in other ways in the UK and is threatening young children who are not vaccinated yet. The children seem to be able to get the Delta virus and could spread it into each other and to those who are not vaccinated. Don't forget, no country has a 100% vaccination rate yet. We need to move forward on that really fast, and that's what's going on in the UK. It's a good warning signal for the rest of us, and we hope and pray to God that this can be brought under control in the UK as well.
And getting back to the G7 summit, climate change, the rise of China, also some main topics. What are we expecting to hear?
Well, we're expecting to hear from President Biden, at least, that there are two major paths in the world today, autocratic rule and democratic rule, and that we need to actually promote democracy in several ways. It's not just substantive democracy, but also procedural, where elections should be regularized, it should be guaranteed, they should be seen as legitimate, and those things are very much of concern. When President Biden's overseas, we've got some real problems here at home with what's going on with the delegitimization of the last election. So you have to have substantive democracy, as Biden says. That means democracies have to deliver. They have to deliver healthcare, jobs, education, and a real substantive future for the people, as well as procedural democracy has to be kept in place. And the G7 summit with these world's democracies should really focus on that. I think that the Europeans are a good example to where they've delivered substantively very well, and I think the U.S. can learn from that. We need to have universal health care here, for example, and Biden's pushing those things through his infrastructure bill and investment bills at home.
Peter, how different it would have been if Donald Trump stayed in power. This G7, and you look towards the end of the year in Glasgow, and the different attitudes of these two, of the former president and the current president.
Completely different, and there's such a big sigh of relief all around the world, not to mention at the actual conference itself. You can see leaders relax a lot more and more willing to trust Biden, but Biden also has to prove that this will be permanent, or it'll be long-lasting, not just a fly-by-night event where one presidency was elected to redress the grievances of what happened previously, and then we go back and revert back to this authoritarian type of presidency before that. We've got to make sure this is permanent, long-lasting, and the Europeans and other people in the world are looking to see that it's actually going to be that way, because they have a lot riding on this as well.
Absolutely. And June 16, Joe Biden and Putin head to Geneva, Switzerland, and security has been ramped up, or is going to be ramped up there in preparation for their discussions. What is going to be discussed there?
Well, several things. I mean, one of them is the concern about the hacking that's emanating from Russia, whether it be the Russian government or just criminals who are in the purview underneath the Russian, or at least in Russia itself. And that has to do with economic hacking and intelligence hacking, and those have to stop. Another thing is the interference in American elections that has to be put on the table there, and President Biden should be, no uncertain terms, tell President Putin, no interference in American elections would be tolerated. And these things have to be dealt with. But he also has to offer Russia incentives and to say, look, the United States and Russia are great powers. They need to get nuclear arms under control, bring back some of those treaties that were expired or that were canceled by President Trump and others, for example, bring them back. The New START Treaty, bring back the INF Treaty, those kinds of things that have to be brought back. And not only those, but the NPT has to be emphasized. So Russia can work with the U.S. in helping to bring the world more stable politics and more, considerable harmony, more so. And this is a very tough competitor he's working with. So I think he has his job cut out for him at this meeting with President Putin.
Yeah, there's a few challenges internationally right at the moment. Little question of that. Professor Peter Mathews, really encouraging to see the numbers dropping in the manner in which they are, COVID-wise, in the United States, and some sort of normalcy starting to sort of spread right across the country. It's always great to have a chat.
It is. It is always good to have a chat, and I'm going to go out and enjoy the sunshine today.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Controversial Australian businessman and Dr. Jeffrey Edelston has...